And now we're streaming.
Okay, thank you. So good evening, everybody. Welcome to the March meeting of the Athens Cultural Affairs Commission. Why don't we just kick things off with an item of business? What do we have any changes to the minutes from last month?
I did not know, I didn't get down who, moved to approve the previous minutes. I got the second was Madeline, but I didn't know, I didn't get who moved originally. Does anybody remember?
It was probably me.
Who was
He's good
that?
at that.
It was probably me.
Okay.
You can say it was. Okay, if there are no changes to last month's minutes, can I get a motion to approve?
I so move.
And somebody second. Thank you for seconding that emotion, Ezra. Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes from last month, our February meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now we can begin in earnest. So our survey results for our retreat are that we have it on May the 14th. So everybody, for now, let's save the date. And again, since the costs were the same for the facilitator, whether or not we have a full day or a half day, we're going for a full day, and we have a full day's worth of business, I'm sure, to conduct. We, on the strategy side, the strategies team can work on setting our agenda for our May retreat, and then we can run it by the full group and get everybody to weigh in before our retreat date. And I'll work with Victoria, who isn't here tonight, to she just sent me an email. We'll work with Victoria to confirm with the facilitator.
Okay.
A few budget things. A meeting with Darcy next week to sort out some spending priorities, including looking at the SPLOST 2020 list to see which projects for which the 1% might not produce a sizable. Our budget should be augmented through our Project 21 budget. So we're carrying, again, to recap what we talked about a month ago, we're carrying fairly large balances in the Project 21 budget as well as our capital budget. And so we really need to make a priority list of spending. To that end, Serena and Mickey and I met a few weeks back to get the bike rack task force going. That will be jointly chaired by Mickey and Serena. I trust that they'll do good work, bring other partners in to that discussion on setting a location priority for bike racks. That makes sense with the current bicycle infrastructure we have, as well as that to come, assuming the T-SPLOST initiative passes in a few months. We'll have a better sense of exactly where we need more bike racks to be located, where they should be. And I'm sure groups like Athens in Motion and Bike Athens have their own wish list of where they'd like to see more bicycle and other pedestrian infrastructure. And Dee Dee, yeah, I can reach out about space. That would be nice if we could save a little bit on the facility and meet in your space, which is a great location. We haven't had a physical meeting at the Linden House in quite some time as a group, and it would be nice if we could all get together at least for our all-day retreat session on May 14th. looking at budgets as urgently, the one we need to spend most urgently every year is, of course, our operating budget. That is being our arts and community awards are being looked at, and how we do things is getting some scrutiny in the county attorney's office. So we need to unfortunately put arts and community awards on hold for the time being. Hopefully this can get resolved, and we'll have better news to report at our April meeting. If not, then we have only a couple months to decide how to spend our operating budget this fiscal year. So unfortunately, the scrutiny is coming at a really poor time for us. We would normally be deciding right about now how to zero out that account and how many arts and community awards we have room for to help us zero out that account. But since we don't know whether or not arts and community awards are even on the table to close out the fiscal year, that means we might have to quickly adjust to another spending priority. So outreach team, if you can think about our website needs, we might need to accelerate that discussion. And perhaps we could spend half the funds this fiscal year and half the funds next fiscal year.
Hi, Katie. Sorry.
So again, we'll have more information on that hopefully in a month.
I think Marilyn has been raising her hand, so she has a
Well, if
comment.
you're finished
And
with
make sure
this
you get called
topic.
out.
Yes, I'm finished with the topic.
Okay.
Welcome,
Well, I
Tony.
apologize for coming in late. I kept opening my meeting and it wanted me to be the host and sign in as the host.
Well,
So anyway,
Welcome to be the host, Marilyn.
yes, thank you. I don't know, did I miss introducing Ellie Swenson, who's with us today? She hasn't been introduced yet, correct?
Yes, I
You know
introduced
that-
her earlier that she's going to be observing our meetings.
Okay. And she is a student of Jack Crowley's and a great background, working on her master's right now, loves the arts, loves community related stuff. And so she'll be with us. And Ellie, did you want to say any more or do you want to stay quiet and just watch?
What program are you in, Ellie?
I'm currently in the urban planning and design program, and I became interested in urban planning and design specifically through my involvement in the arts community when I lived in Denver, Colorado. So just I'm a poet, a performer, an event organizer, a community organizer, and just through personal experiences of losing venues, losing locations, losing housing, got really involved in urban planning and figuring that out and decided that it was a career shift I wanted to make. So I'm interested in public art specifically and its intersections with urban planning and how to create those programs in ways that are more mutually beneficial for both of those initiatives. So excited to be here and learn and see how I might be of service for this group while I'm here.
That's a great lens for urban planning, at least in our very unbiased opinions of the Cultural Affairs Commission.
Excellent. Thank you, Ellie.
So, Tatiana, do you want to run through our projects?
Sure. Oh, and hold on, let me just resend the link to our project chart. It always lives in the same place, but so there's that. If you want to update that way, but yes, projects. Clayton fabrication is still pending, and we're still planning on May for install. Poet laureate, we are working on some poetry month events. April's poetry month, so one thing we're doing is window poetry displays downtown. So I'm working with Linda at the ADDA to find businesses that want to post local poet's poem in the window. So it's not just going to be Jeff or poet laureate. It's going to be other local poets as well. And he's getting those poems together. I should have those this week. So I'll be able to share the poems in advance if anyone wants to look at those in advance before they commit to displaying them in their window. So that's coming up, and there's also going to be a library reading event, TBD. I think it's going to be late April is what we're leaning towards now. Update everyone on that. Greenway 2. So we have our calls in draft. One of the things we were waiting on was the cost of the engineering review. So just to kind of revisit the locations. So the Greenway Phase 2 locations are the small on-ramp wall that's near the Waffle House on Lexington. That's going to be a small mural. The other location is going to be more of a 360 kind of multimedia mural, with the potential to have suspended elements from this bridge underpass area on the North Oconee Access Road. So one of the things that we have to do, because it's a bridge, is any sort of additions to the bridge need to be reviewed by the engineer of record for the bridge. So normally anything structural would just have to be reviewed by an engineer that is certified in Georgia. This is a little more specific. It has to be the engineer of record for that bridge. So, and that's any addition, even if it's not going to alter it structurally in any way, just anytime you drill into a bridge, you have to get type of approval. So we got the estimate of what that would be, and it was definitely more than I was expecting. But it's 2 items on the invoice. So I don't think we necessarily need to have their review for both things. One is just for the actual review of the selected piece. The other is to actually participate in our selection panel so they could speak to any engineering concerns before anything's selected. But what we can do is just have them do the review of the selected piece and save about $6,000. It was going to be almost $10,000 for the engineering review for both those stages of the project. And I think we could just wait till the final stage and then have them approve that and save a good bit. It's still like twice more than what a normal engineering review would cost for something structural. For us, just in my experience, it's usually around $1,000, $1,500. So it's still more than that, but it is a pretty large firm that was the engineer for this bridge. So I think that's a lot of it.
So waiting until to have them just approve will be $4,000?
It's over 3, and I can share the actual invoice, but I just want to discuss it so it makes sense. So it's if we wanted to have them sit in on the selection panel and speak to any engineering concerns to review, just our proposals with us, that was going to be over $6,000 for just that. To just review the final selected piece, it's going to be a little over $3,000.
Whoa.
So total, it was going to be, about $10,000 for both, which is a lot.
Coming out of what budget? How is that paid for?
So this Greenway, this normally that would come out of the artist budget, an engineering review. So I would say because it is so much, I mean, I would add to that budget just you know, pay the difference of what, you know, what an engineering review would normally cost, let's say $1,500, maybe add another 1,500 to the budget just to offset that cost for the artist. Because otherwise, yeah, that would come out of their project budget.
Tatiana, I have their proposal letter. Do you want me to share that with the group?
Yeah, if you want to, if you have that handy.
I do.
And yeah, that could come
On-
from project. Yeah.
Let me know if you guys can see it. Can y'all see it okay?
Yeah.
Oh, so
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, I misspoke. It's over 4,000 for just this one. So that's considerably more than what it
$1,000.
normally costs.
Yeah, and I
So really
also
like
agree that it's a lot of money, and it's probably because it's a big firm and they have probably higher billing rates than our local guy that normally does most of our structural stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, if that could come from our, you know, maybe we paid $3,000 out of Project 21 to offset a portion of those costs.
Mhm.
I'd be in favor of that.
Yeah. Because this is a $40,000 budget for that multimedia mural piece, and it's a pretty big area. And again, it would be potentially 360. So the actual trail itself, the, you know, the concrete trail itself, and the sides of the bridge, and, you know, the underside of the bridge could all be painted or have 3D elements attached in some way. But any kind of attachment would have to be reviewed. So for instance, let's say the selected project was just two-dimensional and didn't have any 3D elements. It was just paint or thermoplastic material or something like that. Then we wouldn't need an engineer, not attaching anything.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So we could just wait and see if the, you know, what piece is selected and go from there.
I like that approach.
You know, we just need to make sure that if we add to the budget, we do so, you know, before it goes through for approval. Okay. That's that. The other half of that we've discussed is so with the small mural, we talked about doing an RFQ process because it's such a small mural. That's a $15,000 budget. One of the things that we talked about though with RFQs is just how do we decide what the artist fee would be for, because in an RFQ, they show previous work and then we pay them a small amount of money to then do a proposal site specific for this project. So just to give you a frame of reference, when we did Clayton Street, we paid the finalists each $500, and that was a $55,000 budget. So we could just move forward with that formula and do 1% of the project budget would be the artist fee for proposal.
Can you explain the difference when RFP versus RFQ and how we winnow down the process to how many RFQs that we're considering?
So just the difference between RFQ and an RFP?
Yeah, let's start there.
Okay. So an RFP is is a request for proposals. So you're requesting a specific proposal for that site, that project, based on the specific criteria that we give. And that is done speculatively. So an artist would have to go through and create, you know, mock-ups and a budget and everything. It's very labor intensive in the hopes that their project is selected. With an RFQ, we ask for qualifications as opposed to an actual proposal. They show us examples of previous work, their resume, etc. Based on their experience and previous work, we select however many finalists.
And references, big on
Marilyn.
references,
You muted?
references.
Yes.
I
No,
thought
I
I
can hear.
unmuted.
Yeah.
What I was trying to say is, and we've got to have references, because if we don't call them, we could be in big trouble.
Right, right. But we're looking for examples of previous work to make the selections, as opposed to having them come up with an original proposal. So then then we select the finalists, pay them each a small amount of money, and then they do a proposal. So they're getting paid for their time, as opposed to just having to do everything on the front end.
And,
So
and
it's still
Tatiana, the benefit with that is that you might get more people and see more people if they know that they don't have to do a lot of work.
right. I mean, it's a lot of, doing a proposal is a lot of work to be done for free. And it is recommended in the plan that we do shift more to this model, the RFQ model, and it is becoming the industry standard for doing projects. We definitely attract a higher caliber of artist, I think, sometimes with RFQs, because they know that they're not wasting their time either, that if they are selected as a finalist, they're at least going to get paid a little bit of money, and not just, it's not a contest, because essentially that's kind of what an RFP process is. It's more or less a contest.
And just to share, with the
So-
RFP model, we've had as many as 40 apply. We've had as few as 2 apply. So the RFQ approach, which we've only used as recently as the selection for the Clayton Street project in 2018, maybe even earlier than that, is something that we should do more often, as Tatiana notes. Even our own public art master plan, which is itself 5 years old, asks us to move more in the direction of RFQs.
Yeah. And with this, yes, it's a small project, and an RFQ could be done on a small project or a big project. This particular one is such a small budget. It's $15,000. We may not get as much interest if we're not offering people a little something for their time for this one.
But you only pay the ones who are finalists,
Right,
not everyone who applies.
right. Yeah.
It's just adding a filter layer so that it just is adding like a filter layer basically. But my question is, why would we use the RFQ just for the small mural and not for the large mural too? If that's a bigger project, I think I've heard you say in the past there are some like bigger public art groups or something out there that they're just not gonna they can't spend their time like looking at something like this where they wouldn't get an honorarium to actually make a proposal. So why wouldn't we?
We could totally
Use that
test
for a
for
large
this
mural.
one as well. Yeah, I don't have an issue with either one.
Okay. It would
really
just
up
come
to
down to
y'all.
budget, I guess, that we have available. Probably.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, I would encourage us to go more towards the RFQ process for everything. I mean, there might be situations where an RFP is, if it's something very, very specific that you're looking for, it could be tricky to just, show examples of other things that aren't going to be at all related to what the project is, if that makes sense. Like if it's something really unique and they may not have an example that even comes close to that. Does that make sense?
The only thing I worry about is our local artists are going to be the ones that are more likely to respond with an RFP. If we move exclusively to an RFQ model, we're going to invite probably larger pools, have more applicants, and it would probably mean local artists getting selected for our projects less often.
Would we still have the option to specify some projects to be local artists only?
We can't, it basically, no one's gonna travel for $15,000, you know? So if you have a small project with a small budget, you know, I mean, it's an all-inclusive budget, so we're not adding to anyone for travel or anything like that. So kind of when you shrink the budget, you kind of shrink the
Cool.
the region. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then
Uh,
again, our hot corner mural wasn't a lot more than that, and we had people from everywhere. So, you know, I say let's do it and see what happens, but I think exclusively moving to one model versus the others is, you know, a little too resolute because we don't know what the cascading effects are. And if that does mean that less local applicants are winning our commissions, if we have fewer local awardees, I don't think too many Athenians would be happy with watching that happen.
Right.
Can I ask one thing related to this? Again, with a small budget, are we adding any money for a contingency so that we don't run into what we ran into earlier where the materials are getting more and more expensive and the artist makes no money on the project because they're spending so much money on the materials?
So we can't add to a contract after the fact.
Right, I know
So-
that, but we haven't
Right.
contracted with anybody for this project, right?
Right.
So
Right.
I'm asking, what are we doing now to prevent the same issues we ran into that were so tough when prices started going up? I don't know where prices are going to be, but
Right.
it seems to me that even if it means we spend some of our own money on a contingency that would be part of, in other words, we raise the budget amount, we raise the contingency, and then we don't have to run into that again. I don't know what we've decided about this issue. That was an important issue that people
Right.
that we ran into, and I hated it for the artists because we want to be helping them make money, not lose.
Right. I understand that. And that's something that unfortunately, what the issue is that if we're under contract with someone and let's say, even if we've added to a budget, we can't bail them out, basically. We legally can't do that.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So I think what I'm saying is to do a mural, let's say, and make a little money is generally 15,000. So why don't we add 3,000 of our own, say that the budget is 18,000 and
Right.
ask for a big contingency based on the fact that at time.
You either give it to them or you don't.
Okay.
You can't really come up with oh, if it goes over this amount, we give them this. That's not something we can do. So we either just give them the 18, right? You know, and contract them for 18,000 or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Tatiana, I have a question.
Yes.
Say, for example, the awarded artist they submit a budget at some point of what their material costs will be. Is that
Right.
correct?
Right.
Okay. It would make sense to me. It would seem logical that any artist who is working today understands that a project that's coming up in the future would try to get some advance notice on costs. Like some of the materials that some of my suppliers, they notify me ahead of time. They will say, these products that you have been purchasing for the last year are projected to increase by 20%. And I think that's at some point we offer what we offer, but the artist has to do their own due diligence in terms of where they get their supplies and what projected increased costs are there. That
Right.
really is a part of what they should be doing.
Right, and that's how the county sees it, you
Uh-huh.
know, and they view it the same like they view, you know, someone doing construction or any contractor, any independent contractor, that they're kind of, you know, I realize that, you know, artists are not the same as our, you know, construction contractors, but that's how the county views it legally. So that's what we've run into with contingencies.
Thanks.
Yes. But I understand what you're saying, Marilyn. It's something that we've.
It's so frustrating. And see,
It is.
here's why I keep getting confused about this. When we did the Classic Center, the budget was actually 150,000, but we only put out a call for 120,000 because we had $30,000 in contingency. But the artist only got 120. Now, I do know that that was part of a big building that was being built, and it may be, I can't think back that far, it may be that because we were basically working on an ongoing large building that somehow, I don't know how it worked. I have to look that up and figure out why that was okay. And maybe it's just, it was okay then and
I
we'll
know what
never
you're
do it
saying.
again.
So,
Yeah.
so when I do construction, guys, say like the Clayton Street project, I have something that's called unforeseen work elements.
Uh-huh.
And that's when, if you're doing something and all of a sudden you come across a pipe in the ground and nobody knew the pipe was in the ground and you got to move the pipe because it's in the way,
Right.
that's an unforeseen work element. And so if you were doing a building, in Maryland, and say for some reason the beam had to be a different size than what was expected and the artist had to make a change to something because of the beam being changed, that's how you can do it. But just because the price of steel goes up or the price of asphalt goes up or the price of concrete goes up, that's just life. And it's horrible, but that's just what it is. And sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, you know. But that's all. Just wanted to put
Yeah.
those 2 cents in.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Marilyn, the parameters by which you develop the contingencies in the Classic Center, do you remember what the framework was? Was it for travel? Was it for?
We set aside money for travel.
Uh-huh.
So the artist could come visit Athens. And, but not a lot, I have to tell you at the time. You know me, I'm always going to fight for more money for the artist.
Right. Right.
I don't always win that. But we did have a small payment set aside for any artist in the top. I think we had 39 applicants. We narrowed it to 10. So any of the 10 finalists were allowed to travel to Athens. And we gave them money for that.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't remember where that came from. I'm guessing the budget.
That would have had to come out of the operating budget.
Yeah. So, but we did that. Yeah.
So for this, back to this mural point, I was thinking about your point, Tatiana, about the 1% of that budget as these honorarium amount. I have some questions around like, I guess just when do we need to decide, and out of what, when do we need to decide that, and then out of what budget would that money come? That would just be operating.
So I had always assumed that would be operating, but according to finance, we can actually use capital funds for it because it's a one-time cost for the project.
Yeah, okay.
But as far as when we need to decide, I mean, I guess before we do an RFQ.
Yeah. And do we have to decide up front, just based on and we might have to answer it in different ways based on where the funds come from, but do we need to decide up front, okay, we're definitely gonna give 5 honorariums to 5 finalists, or would we just review it, see what budget we have, and then go from
No,
there?
we should definitely say what the artist is gonna get for a design fee.
Right. Oh, but just
in
as far as
fall.
numbers of finalists,
But yeah, as far as numbers of
Very
finalists,
today.
I don't think we would need to necessarily decide. I mean, let's say you only get, 3 applicants or something, you could take all 3, but maybe there's only, I don't know. I mean, it kind of depends. We haven't set
to
any
the
precedent.
funds. Mhm.
Yeah, we
so
haven't
can
set
we-
any. Yeah,
I'll
there's no,
stop
I
you
think
though.
we did 4 finalists for Clayton, but that doesn't mean we have to do 4 for every project. It would still have a selection panel, just like any other selection panel, but they would be reviewing, the applicant's qualifications instead of proposals. Any other questions about that? Okay, so, Firefly 2, so that's another kind of interesting discussion. Firefly Phase 2. So the Firefly Trail has, Phase 2 has been completed as of, late last year. We have Phase 3 that's still under construction, and Phase 4. Phase 4 is the bridge, where the trestle was. There's not really a space there for art. So that user group is focusing on the Phase 2 areas and Phase 3 of the trail for art placement. The completion of Phase 3 is actually in this next T-Splost 2023. There's going to be 70, well, I don't know the exact construction budget, but let's say roughly $70,000 for art. Right now we have 113,000 for art for Firefly Trail. It has been suggested from SPLOST that we spend the remaining 113 on Phase 2 and then do Phase 3 art with the T-Splost 2023. And that's going to be, enough of a budget for an art piece for that. And this way we could probably do 2 pieces for Phase 2, or one really, really big, awesome thing. So the budget is 113,000. So a couple of the things that were discussed in the user group, one was a kind of a shade shelter seating type module thing. Think of a bus shelter, but larger. Something that could provide a little more shade, possibly some seating. There are benches in this one area, and this would be at the intersection of Old Winterville Road and Spring Valley. So there's not really any art out that way, but it is kind of a developing area. The other thing that was discussed was some type of gateway piece for the Firefly Trail that would maybe go something overarching. There's not really a lot of room on the sides of the trail. The easement's only about 6 feet on each side. So we were discussing this one area where they have a little bit more land to work with for the sunshade area, and then something like a gateway piece could go over a walkway that wouldn't take up space on the sides. So those are a couple of things being discussed in the user group right now, but originally I thought we were going to split up that 113 for Phase 2 and Phase 3. So that's still being discussed, but cost of building, that vote for building use is moved to June Mayor and Commission meeting. So to go into the arena, so we discussed this, of course, in our last meeting, but the locations have been decided with the user group and roughly types, but our ACAC group needs to just meet to talk about budgets for those individual projects and how we would split those up. Affordable housing, there are some public engagement events being planned among staff. I have some leisure services staff members helping put together some events and schedule. Originally, we were looking to do late this month in April, but now the project manager has moved everything a month. So now we have a little bit more time. Music Walk of Fame. So the 2022 selections have been made by that committee, and hopefully the PR is going to go out this month. The letter, the inductees have been sent by the mayor, and we've heard from 3 of the 5 recipients. So we just want to make sure everyone knows before we go forward with press. And just with the discussion of capital
Sorry.
budget.
For the Music Walk of Fame, we were talking about announcing that over Athfest. And the chair of Athfest is one of is on the selection committee, nominating committee for the inductees. Do you think that's feasible?
I suppose so. We can put off, you mean to put off the announcement until June?
Yeah, I mean, that would be the ideal time frame to
Okay.
make announcements. We've only ever announced these during a pandemic, so there was no Athfest.
Right.
But
Right.
if all it means on our end is delaying this a couple months, I'm fully
Well,
in favor.
the one thing that I do want to mention is that there is a journalist with AJC who is looking to do a piece on the Music Walk of Fame. And so he's been waiting to do that until we announce. And I had said this month. So
Again,
I can
if that
talk
could
to
wait
him
2
and see
months too. I don't see a reason
Yeah.
to haven't. I mean, during Athfest, why not? If that's even
Right.
an option, I think we should explore it.
Yeah, I'll look into it.
And again, Michelle from who is the chair of Athfest and on their board would when we discussed it, she was in favor of that.
Yeah. So with the discussion of capital budget opportunities, there are some small projects. When I say small projects, they, small-ish budgets. We have, of course, the eco stations that are coming to downtown. Also, a Portland Loo is going to be installed downtown. Both of these things on their own, not particularly good looking. But there has been a lot of discussions about doing vinyl wraps, much like we've done with some of the county vehicles with art, like the pop-up park and the PIO's van that has Krisha's art on it. Anything can be wrapped pretty much.
Yes.
To give you an example of cost, the pop-up wrap was about $8,000. So you're going to spend a few $1,000s on a wrap. About it can be trans that way, so it's a really accessible project for our 2-dimensional artists. You don't have to, and it's not a mural. Like, you don't have to be on a ladder, you don't have to be on a scaffolding or a lift. You can just design something. You could do it digitally in the computer, and what we would do is just kind of create a template that an artist could put their art on, and we pay them few hundred, couple $1,000s or so for the rights to the artwork. And it wouldn't even necessarily be the forever rights to the artwork, just for the use of this particular project. And that could be done on eco stations or the Portland Loo, utility boxes. few things we've discussed. So just depending on kind of the size of what you're wrapping, obviously the bigger it is, the more costly it's going to be. But as far as design fees, you know, be thinking about design fees for two-dimensional art for those things. And that would be some great small projects and accessible projects, especially for local artists.
So with these eco stations, Portland Loo, and perhaps power, what did you say?
Utility
Utility
boxes.
boxes.
Utility boxes. Would those qualify as using capital funds?
I think so. The longevity of the wraps, I think, is they're long enough that they could be considered capital improvements, but I'll double check on that for sure. But I would think so.
Are those projects, where are we in the timeline for those projects? Is that like imminent, or is that in the fall, or?
So the loo should
yeah.
arrive probably in May, June time frame. I was going to share one more thing just so you can get an idea of what, so the loo is going to have this kind of a place for us to put art. And you guys could do it as a rotating thing even, because I think it just slides in behind this panel.
Can we just wrap the whole thing?
I don't know necessarily if we want to wrap this whole thing just because it's got to be power washed and stuff because it is a toilet, you
Right.
know, and we have no experience with what happens to people who use this. So it's still a new thing and it's stainless steel. And so I would suggest we start with, in my opinion,
Yeah.
just putting a poster in. In the eco station though, I mean, it's going to hold garbage cans. So I don't,
Yeah, it's sort of
I
an
don't have a problem with
enclosure.
that.
And yeah, and Diana, you said that the RFP for the eco stations themselves have gone out, so they need to find
It went out,
someone
they
to
had
build these
a
things.
mandatory,
Yeah.
they had a mandatory pre-proposal meeting and only one firm showed up to it and they are not metal fabricators. So we are working on a backup plan.
And yeah, you know, maybe wraps make sense, especially for a Portland Loo, an eco station that's gonna get wear and tear. Its use might drive us to a wrap over, let's say, a mural. But if it's something like a utility box, I don't know if a wrap makes more sense than just old-fashioned paint.
Right.
So this is kind of what they're envisioning the eco station would look like. This is looking at it from the front and looking at it from the top. So it would be a big, basically rectangle. So you could wrap all the sides or the sides that might have perforations you may not want to wrap. I just don't know because they decided not to include a sketch because they wanted to leave it open to whatever the fabricator wanted to propose. So anyhow, it's a big rectangle right now. And the only issue with the utility boxes, Tatiana, is I don't know necessarily if we've gotten traffic engineering to buy into it yet. But I mean, even Atlanta the AJC had something about it last week.
Yeah, they're
You know, if
everywhere.
if Atlanta's doing it and everywhere, every town I go to, everybody's doing it. So I just think it's a beautiful addition to something that's very utilitarian.
Yeah.
Utilitarian, fairly ubiquitous.
Yeah.
I really like the idea of that is a fairly cost-effective way of getting original art out there everywhere.
Yeah, in Atlanta, they paint them. Will Eskridge actually did one in Tennessee. I think it was Chattanooga. But I think that was a wrap. So I've seen both. Either way, I think that would be a good small project.
That might also be an opportunity for something else we've talked about in terms of verbal
Mm,
uh,
mhm.
I mean, not signage, but
Art. Text
um,
art.
lyrics or
Yeah,
poetry or something.
Yeah,
that's true.
Mm-hmm.
good thinking.
We still have to get past getting permission to do it.
Yeah, but again, like if other communities are figuring this out, we need to find a way to move past that.
But yeah, that's it for projects, I think.
Great, thank you. And again, this matter on holding off the Arts and Community Awards, we've already discussed. One thing we do need to do, and Tatiana, is this in motion, our new member call to replace Patrice.
Yes, yes, that, what end dates are we thinking for the call?
Leave it open for, I don't know. What do we usually do? 3 or 4 weeks?
Isn't a month? Yeah, isn't a month pretty
About a
standard?
month, yeah.
Let's see, we have our retreat on the 14th of May. Let's see if we can end it so the new person could get brought in to the retreat.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And again, all 3 members whose terms are expiring at the end of this month want to stay on. So that's a great thing to have 100% of members who have the option of leaving at the end of their term, renewing their terms, considering we don't pay any of y'all. So that's a great thing. It speaks that we'll have a lot more institutional knowledge than we typically have as a body. And if we could get the new member brought in before our retreat day, all the better.
Right.
Okay, outreach, do you guys have anything to say? Want me to put you on the spot, Madeline?
No, it's okay. Yeah, so the update is that we did not have our March meeting. Helen's traveling right now, so that's why she's also not here. So we would love to take y'all through the website project next month, and we can talk about, maybe by that point we would have an update from the on the Arts and Community Awards issue, because I would think if we don't know by this time next month, we're going to really be pushing the timeline. So
Push it either way.
we're pushing it already, yeah. But I think next month for sure we'll know. And we had talked about at one point, could we just split the cost of that project across the fiscal year? So I think that would be great. But yeah, we can talk about that next month. And I think that's about it. We're actively looking for opportunities to table and do some public engagement. So I know the farmers markets are starting back up, and if there are any events, any Linden House events or anything else that y'all think would be great to have an ACAC presence at. We're not having a lot of ribbon cuttings or anything right now, so we have more time for the volunteers to do that. So just let us know. And we would also love some new members. You can be on strategy and on outreach if you want to join us. We do arts and crafts. It's really fun. So join us. We usually meet, I think, the day after the strategy team meets. So that's about it. Yep.
And again, the strategy team is we made spending priorities the focus of our March meeting. So we're not slackers, and when we met in March, outreach. Yeah, that's right. JK. Not a turf war. And so that would be at least my vote that is among the things we decided our retreat as a larger body. Is how to guide our spending priorities. And our master plan does have really good frameworks for deciding between spending priorities. that's all I've got. So we typically close with some updates from our various arts worlds. So who's got some arts happenings?
I have a couple things. I hung a show at the library, the public library on Baxter. It's Father Anthony is a local Greek Orthodox priest, and he does a lot of kind of traditional iconography, but he also does some really cool abstract work as well. So it's kind of a mixture of all of those things, and that's going to be library until May. And also starting tomorrow, my personal purse collection is going to be on view at the Linden House in the collections from our community case in the lobby. So if you want to see what kind of hoarder I am, come check that out.
I wanted to share that we're going to have a memorial celebration for Nancy Lukashevitz on May 15th, which is a Sunday, from 2 to 4. And I can't tell you anything because I'm just meeting with the new committee, and I'm going to well, Brian and Lisa, Nancy's daughter and son, will be there. And I'm going to take all kinds of ideas and we'll begin figuring some things out based on whatever limitations we have. So yeah, I'm very excited about that. I can't wait to celebrate both Nancy and her contributions to our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you for that. The juried show is up. If you haven't seen it, it's totally fantastic. And yes, I'm so happy to have Tatiana's purses in the lobby because I want to use them all over the next month. Tatiana. We have
a nominal rental fee.
We have artist talks this coming Thursday for Third Thursday, and several, I think another 4 or 5 times when we will be hosting artist talks for the juried show exhibitors throughout the run of the show. So I hope that you can join us for one of those. Thanks.
I have a couple things to share. First, I wanted to shine some light on someone we know and love, Broderick Flanagan. I went to a panel that he participated on. He participated in a couple weeks ago on basically being a Black artist in Athens with Pam Ramey and Tabitha and Kifalto. It was great, but at that panel, Braddock announced that he's moving forward with a project that we learned about in ACAC maybe a while ago. So if you search your inbox and you've been a member for a while, you might be able to find that project. But so he is moving forward with a temporary art installation in the Bethel Homes project. Before the buildings are being torn down, it's a temporary art installation, and he's gotten funding. I know he's looking for more, but the project is something that he's working with an artist who sort of initiated this idea out of Atlanta, Scott Ingram, with the Temporary Art Center project in downtown Atlanta. So the idea is in these spaces that are about to be demolished, there'll be an art installation, and he'll actually be paying folks who live in that space. That's his award at AC. Oh, that's great. Did not know that, Tatiana. That's awesome. Well, it's a really massive project with a much bigger budget than what the Arts and Community Award is covering. So it's a really, really awesome thing. I think it's happening pretty soon, and he'll have some of the folks who live there acting as being paid as docents, which is really cool. So just want to share that. And then for some news on the my programming front. At Creature Conference, we have 2 big calls for artists right now. One is our Artist in Residence program. So that person will work with us in the fall to develop a community project. They'll get a $5,000 stipend and a lot of time invested into helping them to grow their professional and creative leadership skills. So that is open. The call for that is open through the end of this month, and that's just for artists based here in Athens. And then we have another call for just a big fun outdoor market we're doing. It's one of the lower cost markets in Athens. So that's trying to be more accessible to emerging artists and stuff. So really excited about both of those. If you have any questions, reach out to me.
All right. Thanks all. Thanks for your attention this month. Strategy team, I'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Everybody else, we'll see you on the 11th. Thanks for all your work, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye all.